Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are delighted to be on this webinar today with Brad Parker and Victor Luger. I'm going to start with very quick introductions. I'm Christine. I'm the co-founder of Sunday. I run our U.S. business. And Sunday is the leading digital checkout solution in the U.S. I am going to hand it over to Victor for a quick introduction.
Thank you, Christine. My name is Victor. I'm French. I'm based out of Atlanta. Over the last 12 years, I've been a restaurateur. I'm still a restaurateur. We had one restaurant, Italian restaurants in Paris. We now have 29. We opened in Birmingham yesterday, our 29th restaurant across Europe, Dubai next year, the US the year
Birmingham,
after.
UK, not Alabama.
Yeah.
Indeed. And out of that restaurant business, we built what was at the time a very simple feature to just improve our hospitality and allow our guests to pay very, very quickly when they wanted to. And the results were so mind-blowing that we spinned it off out of our restaurant business 3.5 years ago, and it's Sunday. And here we are, 4 years later, processing close to 2 billion annually across 7 countries. It's an exciting adventure.
And I would like to hand it over to Brad for an introduction. We're delighted to have you here with us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Brad Parker. I'm the founder and CEO of Parker Hospitality. We own and operate currently 15 restaurants around the country with stores 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 all under construction right now. So we will be actually 21. So we'll be at about 21 locations here in the next 8 months. Our biggest brand is the Hampton Social. We have other brands under Nisos Prime, which is a Mediterranean steakhouse, Costero, which is a Mexican concept, Basement, which is a live music speakeasy concept, and then under development on another live music concept in Nashville called Bond Street, and a big pickleball concept called Montauk, which is a hybrid of Hampton Social, but brings sports activities, bocce ball, duck pin bowling, pickleball, more of an activity. We're building 47,000 square foot spaces in the suburbs of Chicago. So really excited to be here, excited to share how Sundays impacted us and helped our staff be more efficient, and how they're growing and making some changes that will, I think, greatly help operators in the future.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. All right. So for the 100 listeners who are out there today, we're going to talk about 3 main things for the next 40 minutes. The first one is get more information from Brad and Victor about their restaurant groups, how they expand and how they're scaled. Then we're going to talk specifically about technology and how they've leveraged technology in their restaurants. And finally, very important, we're going to talk about the diner and brand experience. So we can get insights from both Brad and Victor, who've built pretty phenomenal brands. So I'm going to start with a question for Brad. You gave us a quick overview of the Parker Hospitality Group, but I want to dive a little bit deeper on the Hampton Social specifically. Can you tell us more about the concept and also how you decided to go in the different markets you're in? My understanding is your concept is based on sort of a Hamptons vibe, but obviously you're all over the country now. So tell us a little bit more about that.
So when I first developed it in Chicago, I think any entrepreneur will tell you they didn't, looking back, if they have lots of locations, they never thought it was going to actually become what it's become, right? So you start with one location, and Victor can tell you, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that worked, and you try location 2 and it worked. But the original idea was we built the first one in Chicago, and the reason for the brand of the Hampton Social is I wanted to build a restaurant that really transported someone to somewhere else. So in Chicago, you had a bunch of gastro type restaurants, industrial, dark steakhouses, high-end food places, but nothing where you kind of walked into. I always joke, there was Rainforest Cafe in Chicago, and even though it was for kids, you walked into this thing and it was like a jungle. At least you felt like you were in this jungle. There's all these aquariums around. But there are concepts almost like what Disney does. And so how do you bring some of that to where someone doesn't have to go on vacation to experience what you can bring them, but you can bring it to them? And we were one of the first ones to do this. And we started with this mentality, and it just took off. And people were like, in Chicago, oh my God, I feel like I'm on vacation. And at first people are like, this is never going to work in Chicago. Like, we have cold winters here. Like, what's this going to be like in the winter? But even throughout the winter, people are coming in and be like, let their hair down, have a cocktail, feel like, you're on a dock somewhere, even though it's a cold dock outside. And it just worked really well. And then we would get the word of, hey, we need something like this in the suburbs of Chicago. All the women would come in and say, we need this in Oak Brook. We need this in Skokie. And so I was like, all right, well, let's focus in our backyard. Let's try the suburbs. It worked. Let's try another location in the city, and it worked. And I kept trying to expand in that model. As I was doing that, I had an affinity for Florida because my grandmother was down there. My sister had moved down there. My mother had moved down there.
No. Because you live in Chicago. That's why you have an affinity for
that too.
Florida.
And it's freaking cold in Chicago. So, that was just like a natural progression for me. This was pre-COVID, pre the huge landslide move down to Florida. So good timing, I guess, on us. And started expanding that market because I just saw the future of it. And then Nashville, Tennessee was another one. My sister went to college in Nashville. That's our biggest store, our $23 million highest volume unit. And I saw the growth that was happening in Nashville. And so my mind started going to like, how do I put these in these like we have a location in Miami, but how do you put these into like B+ markets, mid-level markets, and stand out against your competition and really thrive? So we're now opening in Dallas. We opened in Denver. We're opening in Atlanta, Georgia. We're looking at opening in Scottsdale and the Carolinas. So these markets that might not be New York, Chicago, LA, Miami, but looking at kind of these B+ markets and trying to bring people in those markets who might not have the money to fly to New York and get on a car and drive 5 hours to the Hamptons, which is expensive to stay in, and really explore what that experience was like. Because I think people have like an image of what that is, and we just kind of replicated it, and it's worked in our favor. It's been a great experience. It's been an experience going through COVID and doing all that stuff, but it's kept me sharp for sure.
Awesome, Brad. Thank you. I'm going to hand it over to Victor. We want to know, Victor, as you're expanding into the U.S., how are you looking at the U.S. territory? What markets are you looking at? And what can we learn from you as you're going through that exploratory phase?
Well, first, why are we looking actively at the US? 8 years ago, a shareholder of mine told me, but why are you going to London? What's the biggest market for you? And we said, well, it's America. And he said, well, then go there. And at the time we didn't, because we felt being in France, opening in America would impact so much us traveling back and forth, the time difference, all of that. So we just pushed that to later. And to be honest, it's really hard to grow the confidence when you're in Europe to think that you're going to be able maybe to make a difference here in America. And if it was not for Sunday, where now the US is our biggest country, we work with close to 1,000 restaurateurs across the country. If I hadn't met the Brad of this world, etc., it's by meeting restaurateurs through Sunday that I sort of progressively built a confidence that we're not doing such a different job. And that was the start point of us saying, let's maybe try to do Big Mama in America. And then we looked at it the wrong way, like most European, which is America is a country, just like Germany where we went, or Italy where we went, or the UK. It's actually so many different countries. And
it's 52. It's a bunch of different countries.
And let's agree that maybe Arkansas and Oklahoma might be slightly similar, but Miami is way more different to New York than Berlin is different to Paris, way different. And so then we sort of refined where region could we go to, and we identified, well, there is New York, which is a place in itself. There is Chicago, there is Florida, and there is Texas. And then 1,200 people told me, stay the fuck out of California.
Yep.
That was it. And then Chicago was out of the radar. I'll tell you humbly why. Because Chicago has an incredible concentration of excellent operators. And I think one of the reasons why so many people struggle going to Chicago is not that Chicagoans like this or that. I think this is bullshit. I think it's, if you're a great staff, being a dishwasher or a restaurant manager, if you work in Chicago, there is a lot of chances you're going to be working for Brad, for Brandon Sadikoff, for Kevin Boehm, for RJ Melman. There is a lot of chances you're going to be working for Hampton Social, 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 for etc. for Gibson. And all these people, they take good care of their staff. All these people, they grow, they give you opportunity. Why would they come and work for Big Mama when we open them? And I think that's a very important point. So Chicago was out of the radar. Probably Texas is a good place to open, but eventually my co-founder Tigran decided he will move next year to America, and him living in Spain today, all his family speaks fluent Spanish. Florida is way closer to Europe, where we still have this 3,000 employees business. So he's going to move to Miami, and so we're going to start in Florida. Is that going to be Miami? Is that going to be West Palm Beach? Is it going to be Tampa? Is that going to be Boca? I'm not quite sure yet. We're figuring out, because you can probably do a great 15, 20 million top line restaurant in Boca, and there might be less competition than in Miami, and less just run to the next craze, whatever. This is still unsure, but this is where we are now.
Well, you're thinking in the right direction, right? Like those are all the variables in Florida. Florida in itself is a country. Like it's literally, we look at Florida, we have 4 units now to do about 25 to 30 units just in Florida alone. So it's a great market to come to, because if you can figure the market out, you can start expanding from Miami to Boca to up the coast and get a couple units together. And it definitely has more of a European, South America vibe to it, so you guys understand that influence, which in Miami is its own little country on its own. I always say, like, it's part of the U.S., but it's not part of the U.S. It's so international and multicultural that it's very different. So that's exciting that you guys are coming over, though.
All right, before I move over to the technology questions, Brad, I can't resist asking you something. When we started working with you, everyone told me that you had come up with the rosé all day tagline, and that your post on Instagram had made it famous. Is that true or not?
So, we were kind of
pretty cool.
I don't know if it was me or my small little team at the time. We're sitting around talking about it, but we knew we wanted to slap something in a neon sign onto a wall. And I think we were like at a party or something. I heard someone say rosé all day or something like that. So I didn't like invent it, but I heard it. I was like, oh, what a great time in the market. And then time in the market, like rosé was picking up huge, especially in America. It's been around, mixers like rosé. We've been doing this for a long time, right? But, we really, that market picked up for us right around the time we were doing this. So we slapped this neon sign on a green wall and put it in our restaurant. And somehow it literally became like a top 10 most Instagram sign in a restaurant in the world. It was like literally, we were competing with like the Bean in Chicago for like photo opportunities. I was like dumbfounded, but it like taught me that like if you do something that like people want to take a picture in front of, that like you're getting free advertising, you're getting free marketing, and it's like carried us to this point. Like we have our sign in Nashville for it, and it's like just how many people just send me pictures of their friends taking pictures in front of the sign. It's just like thousands and thousands. They're all putting them online. So for us, it's like, well, it's the best type of marketing you can get. It's free over and over. And you get that. I know you get that with Big Mama, Victor. It's just people taking pictures of the interior, how you design your interior, not just, a sign, but like, what's the photo opportunity? Why would someone want to take a picture in your space and post it? I think it's kind of important.
I've got one question for you on the restaurant growing. I mean, you've made one restaurant very successful. A lot of people have done that. Then you've grown to 15, soon to 20 in a very short period of time. That is, in your part of restaurant, which is not franchise, which is not QSR, which is not coffee, etc., there are actually very few examples of people going that speed. And the reason is it's really hard.
It's I might be psycho for trying it, but
is there anything you've done that you think allowed you to do it and do it successfully?
So I think two things. We did that too. It's been like a 10-year period since I started. About 2.5, 3 of those were COVID affected. So really we did most of our growth in the beginning 6 years and then kind of had some afterwards. But I think my advice for someone trying to do that, I think if I did it again, I would have slowed down a little bit at the beginning and fixed some of my kinks out. I think I have a crazy team with crazy work ethic that is awesome. And so we've gotten through it. But it's finding a way to align everyone onto a similar goal. So my big thing was, guys, do we all want to just own some restaurants, or do we want to build the next, I'm going to use it, but the Cheesecake Factory, multi-billion-dollar company in the United States? And if that's the case, speed is going to be our winning factor, because people are going to knock us off. I can tell you how many cease and desist for Rose All Day signs I have. I can tell you how many concepts that are trying to mimic doing what we're doing and go after the same market. The difference that they can't do is the speed at which we can build our product. And with that speed came opportunity. Like you said, growth. How do you build your team? How do you show them like, hey, you might have come into this job because you got out of college, you didn't know what you're going to do, you became a restaurant manager, but this is a real career. This is a real business, and you're not working for a one operator like you talked about, Victor, going to Chicago. You're not working for that. If you come here and you do that, but you do it under the pretense of, guys, we're not coming here for one unit. We're coming here for 20 or 30, and this is going to be a real company. Selling that opportunity, I think, to your staff is hugely important. One of the things where I would advise that we're retooling and would focus on is we built this network of restaurants. And anytime someone got really, really good at their job, like a GM, they were like, what's my next thing? And we're like, okay, we're going to pull you up to our corporate level, and we're going to, you're going to be a DO, or you're going to be a specialist in culinary or whatever. What you end up doing if you do that, you pull your best talent out of your stores, and your best talent needs to be in your stores. And so you need to find ways to make your GMs go from GMs to senior GMs to managing partners to maybe a regional partner where they oversee 2 stores, but that's it. And really financially incentivize them, because as you try to build a big overhead on top of them, what you find is you get less trained, less qualified people running your stores, and these more qualified people are just fixing all their problems for them all the time. So you got a salary here and you got a salary here. When you add that up, you're like, I should have just paid you more money to stay where you were and do a good job and make sure that asset, that cash generating asset, was really focused on. So we've rechanged that model to really focus in that sense, keeping a smaller, more condensed operational team, which also allows fewer levels of communication from myself down to the team. And we found when we had all those levels that like things got lost in translation, we started losing who we are. So keeping that condensed and tight here, I don't know how you guys do it over there, but it's very, very important for us. And that was one of the things that I said, I wish I slowed down and figured out first. I would have done better. But those are my things, is like, just, you have to have I think if I had done that too, I would have actually grown faster, because you can't, once you get a store up, stabilized, and focused, you don't want to worry about it. You need it to run like its own business in a sense. It needs to follow your rules, your standards, and all your protocols and your systems. But that store needs to run like its own business, and you don't want to have to babysit it. So trying to find real qualified people to be your GMs, incentivize them, compensate them, pay them, give them incentive to think like an owner, to care about what you care about, and that will be how you're going to grow quickly.
Thanks. I love that. All right, let's move on to more topics around technology. I am a technology gal, super excited to hear your insights. I'm going to start with a question for both of you, but maybe Brad, you can take the first answer. It's, how are you choosing technology? And when you're making those decisions, what are the most important criteria on how it's going to impact your business?
Man, Victor knows technology in this business seems like it's throwing a new something at me every day, right? And I think we met with you guys and talked with you about this. And it's like, how is that, one, what's the ease of use for your staff? Because if they can't adopt this technology, you'll implement it and it will just like fall to the wayside. How, and when you adopt it, making sure it's successful and it has a positive rollout, because if not, you're just going to keep throwing things at them. So I'll take example. We're looking at this new like menu organization database that will hold all of our food menus and how we update it, and then they can use it in the kitchen, et cetera. One of the big criteria was for my staff, they brought me back 4 different options, and they're like, hey, we think we want to go with this one because it fits in our platform. It does what we need. And I said, guys, the biggest thing I'm going to grill you on is my staff going to be able to use this easily? Are they going to be able to get all my documents and documentation into it easily? And then is it going to be very easy to keep updating as we go along. Because if you don't have those things, like you can have this great technology, but if it's such a pain in the ass to get all your paper documents into it, all your stuff into it, you'll just never get an ad. No one will adapt to that because you're going to end up having a half-ass used technology, right? And so I think when you're going through and getting these things, you really have to vet these companies to make sure that they've gotten all their stuff checked off, that you can roll this out with you guys integrating us into Toast. How is that going to work? How are we going to adopt it? I mean, there was, people were questioning me about what's this like for our customer? Is this going to really work? One of the best things I love about your resources, regardless of flipping your table faster and closing that customer out quicker and getting your table turns down and your time back, I mean, the review part is huge, right? Like we just saw skyrocketing reviews for us. And I love that part because it's putting that instantaneous feature into that, customer's hand instead of, because it's easy to get bad reviews because that person's so pissed off at you. They're going to go to, Yelp or Google or wherever, and they're going to take their time to do it. It's really hard to get the good reviews because the person's like, I love that place. Let's go. Right. And so when you put that into someone's hand and they can put that 5-star on there for you, I believe it really, really helps the restaurant because it gives that outlet for them to go in. So that's why I think with you guys was adopting that there were so many aspects to making that successful. But for me, ciphering through technology is really about ease of use and if it's going to work. And you got to vet that out at the beginning, or else you'll just keep throwing your team stuff, and they're like, "Stop throwing stuff at us. It was this one this month, and now it's that one next month." So they can get technology fatigue for sure. Victor,
super helpful. Yeah, Victor, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, it's funny because you're definitely smarter than I am. When I was just a restaurateur and I hadn't spinned off into tech, I was 100% guest focused, which is how we created Sunday. Like as a guest, I want to be able, the second I think about my bill, I want to be the fuck out of here. And so everything in the meantime is going to be a pain. That's my feeling as a guest. So we build that for the guests. And now that I'm in technology, I absolutely understand that you're right. It's actually, of course, it has to be great for the guests. Yeah. It's great for the guests to pay with Sunday. It's great for the guests to do an online reservation rather than call a number. All of this stuff are great for the guests, but what's going to make the difference is how we can succeed to onboard the staff. And that is absolutely making the difference. I was reviewing with one of our clients here in the US this morning, some figures. In the US, on 100 people who see the bill on their phone, on average at Sunday, on 100 people, guests who see the bill on their phone, 88% end up paying with their phone.
Wow.
So you have 88% of Americans, now over 1,000 restaurants, we cover not just big cities, like 88% of Americans are more happy to pay with their phone in instance than the credit card stuff.
Yep.
Now, on average, across all our restaurants, only 43% of people see the bill with their phone because the waiter is not going to put the QR code on the table, or the QR code is so sleek and nice and simple that it stays on the table, but the guests don't notice and they don't know they can use it. And so actually, if you want to have 60, 70, 80% of your guests using it and capture the whole value as a restaurant, the difference is exactly what you said. It's about motivating your staff to make sure the guest is aware of it. And this actually for the last 2 years has been most of our product development, because our product has been great for the guests 2 years now, but where we're perfecting and improving is on the waiters front. So yeah, you're smarter.
Yeah, it's why I believe our numbers, like 65% of all of our guests are actually using Sunday. So we're 20% higher because we have trained into that protocol. Hey, when you're ready to check out, your Sunday's on the table. You can pay by that. You can split your checks. You can do that because we know from our sales side that flipping that table and getting that customer out of there is a huge advantage for us. If we can save those minutes, they add up throughout the day. We can turn tables during high peak time. We can make more money. So we've trained that to our staffs. And that's what I'm saying. If you don't give the why or how it's going to benefit your staff, that's the other thing. How is this going to benefit your server? A lot of things or benefit your cook, right? Like if you don't give them the why, they're not going to adapt. If you don't give them a motivating reason to want to benefit themselves, I love my staff, but sometimes they can be really like, okay, I only care about myself. They don't think about the business. They don't think about the bigger picture. So how do they adopt this and how do they move forward with it? What's in it for them? And that is, you can turn your table. You have one less thing to do while they're paying. You're making more money selling someone another drink over here. You're going to pad your pocket by adapting this technology. So make sure people are using it, and it will help you.
The other thing, Christine, I might say about choosing tech is something I did not quite realize as when I was just a restaurateur, is technology for restaurants is becoming bigger and bigger and also more and more complex, which is the standards for technology is getting higher and higher. We pay with Apple Pay, we buy stuff online on Shopify, we buy in one click on Amazon.
Yep.
345 million Americans are now used to buying in one click. People go to Whole Foods and they pay with the palm of their hand.
I do it all the time.
This is becoming the standards. And so as a restaurant, which is eventually, restaurant is a small industry within retail, it's a small industry compared to e-retail, for instance. It's harder for us to keep at pace with the level of investments that are being made for e-retailers, the likes of Shopify, etc., or for supermarkets. My whole point is that because of that, when I choose technology now, from the Big Mama perspective, I go for the best of breed. I go for the big companies because only them are going to be able to sustain the investment. I'm not biased. We work with so many. I mean, whatever. I'm not going to go down that route. But when you choose your POS, choose the POS that is the market leader in the kind of restaurants where you are.
Yep.
If you're a coffee shop, you guys know what the leading POS is. When you go to coffee shop, it's always the same. And when you go to groups of 1 or 2 to 50 restaurants, 95% of American restaurants have the same POS. And the fact that they all have the same makes that people with the same sort of requests, the same kind of clientele and usage, all have the same. And so this POS has a lot of money and is spending that money to build features that you need. And it works for reservation, it works for workforce management, it works for checkout and payment. It's a winner takes all market.
For sure.
I have a tactical question about rolling out technology for both of you. Is when you introduce a new POS, a new payment system like Sunday, a new reservation system, how are you making sure from your executive team down to every server the information is going through? So is it a training team? Is it a progressive rollout? What are the tactical things we could share with all the restaurateurs on the call that would help them understand how you guys have successfully rolled out new technology?
Yeah, I think progressive rollout for us is huge. Like, get into a store, beta test it, work the kinks out. It's easier for us from a high level to focus on that one store than focus on, 12 at one time. So you got to get it in, work out all the problems, and then we kind of stage. I mean, we did this with you. We just staged through our stores as we went along. Now that's with your technology, that's easy to do, to stage it in. With like a POS, now you're running two separate POSs. They're not talking to each other. So like, we dread the day if we ever had to change a POS system. But yeah, definitely tactical is to stage that out for sure. Trying to do everything at once is almost impossible. Victor?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. What I witness is our style of management at Big Mama has always been very top down. We are very strong in terms of artistic direction, typically on design, on food, etc. So we have a very top down management style. Pretty military, if you like. Most of our staff are Italians, and they actually adore that sort of very old school European military management style. It works very well for us. So for that reason, when we implement something, we test once, we test twice, and then boom, this is our way, and it's our way or the highway. There are a lot of restaurants out there who have a different way of working, which is everyone's a partner in the business. Your waiter are the partners, and everyone has their saying. And so everyone has an opinion on technology. My take personally is that it's my job as a CEO of a restaurant group to have an opinion about technology, because I'm actually right now I'm sitting in an office. I'm not pouring coffee or cooking pasta, and I've done it before. It's a really hard job, and I'm expecting from my team that they're doing that job with a customer mindset and a customer focus. When they've done that a whole day, they don't have time left to think about technology. And thinking about technology is a complex thought process. It's my responsibility as a CEO, or us in the office, if you like, to make sure we owe it to them to make the right choices. But then we don't ask them their opinion. Right. On the contrary, if they tell me this is how you cook the pasta and this is the machine I need to do that, and my plates they break too much, we need another plate, well, I'm going to trust them and I'm going to do what they say. So I think technology it's more and more complex. It's moving very fast, and I think it takes dedicated people and CEOs to get involved. Take the example of Sunday. It's going to impact 100% of your guests, 100% of your waiters. Think about workforce management. It's going to impact 100% of your staff, and our staff is our more precious resource. So choosing a workforce management system, it's a drill. It's a painful thing to think about. But as a CEO, I don't think you have much better to do, to be honest, than to get involved in what workforce management system. Your reservation system. If you go with one or the other, depending on if they have this or that feature, if you can configure this or that, your top line might be impacted 5, 6, 7%.
Yep. I mean, I think there's a huge thing there when he talks about making those decisions. I think someone in a restaurant too is so hyper-focused on what's happening in their restaurant to make a decision on something that affects a broad network of restaurants is huge. But I think our jobs as CEOs and COOs and tech, departments is what can we institute that makes their jobs easier in the stores, right? And that's the thing with technology. It should always make it easier, not harder, right? So Sunday makes the job easier. We're talking to some AI companies, reservation. You call in and they do everything. Now there's no hostess answering your phone. It's all going to be digitalized. And we're about to launch this, and it's actually better than a hostess because the phone's never missed. You get all your directions. You say, hey, what are the hours of operation for your store? It gives it back. Hey, what's the direction? Hey, I've texted you a link immediately. Like, my host can't do that. They don't have those capabilities. So it can book your reservations for you. It can cancel your reservation. It can do everything that a host can do, but it's going to get to you 100% of the time, right? And then my hosts can focus on really fielding the customers and be hyper-focused on it. So that's going to make their jobs. They're not sitting there answering the phone. They're not like on the phone. Hold on 1 second. Let me get to your table. All these things are going to make their jobs easier. My menu books, my digital menu books are going to make my chefs' jobs easier because, back when we had paper binders with all these menus in them, we do a menu update. It's updated every single one of those paper binders, making sure everything's correct. Now it's a push of the button. Boom. All my executive chefs get an alert. Here's the changes that were made to your menu. Go check these all out. Here's how you implement them. Videos are attached, whatever. It's everything that we implement should make their lives easier, not more difficult. And if you find yourself implementing a technology that they find difficult, that's where I think it goes awry. And that's where the old POS systems, that's why Toast took over the market. They took a system that was very difficult for people to update on the back end and use, and simplified the hell out of that process. And that's why they went to market and they grew so quickly as a POS company. And I still believe, while they're not perfect, they are overarching the strongest at making someone's life easier when it comes to the POS.
I love all the feedback you guys are sharing. We actually have a tactical question about this topic from one of my favorite restaurateurs in Chicago, TJ Callahan from Farm Bar. He is a great Sunday user. TJ, I'll share that you have 80% adoption with Sunday, but TJ has a specific question about benefiting from table turns. He says, yes, I have 12-minute faster table turns, but my open table slots are only 15 minutes. And so if someone's finished 12 minutes faster, I'm still only seating them at 7:30. Brad, you may have thought about this, but I know, Victor, you have. How do you benefit from the faster table turns in your restaurants when you already have dedicated reservation slots via your reservation engine?
My reservation slots, I can configure them.
Yeah, so we tighten them.
They used to be 70 minutes for two seaters. Now they're 55 minutes.
Yeah, so we tighten. That's what I was saying. We just tightened them up as we implemented Sunday, and we saw those turn times. We start now, instead of an hour and 30 minutes, it went to an hour and 15 minutes, and then we overlap. We actually overbook so that if someone's actually moving at 115, we move it at 110 or 105. So someone comes in, they get there late. The goal is to never have that table empty. And if they're there a little early or we don't have the table ready, grab a drink at the bar, move them around, make a sale at the bar. You don't want to go those numbers to go over. But it's definitely just you have to adjust your systems as the data comes in.
The other thing we've done exactly that, is we keep 20% of our seats non-reservation. And so these tables are the variable of adjustment. So that if one table gets unlocked earlier, the walk-ins who are waiting for the next table, boom, they just come in faster. And not only do they sit 12 minutes faster, but because they didn't stand for another 12 minutes, they get a drink faster. And so it's not only that I'm going to sit more people, I'm actually going to increase the average spend. Yeah. And the last thing, which is what we did the latest in the process, was to realize that once we had all these improvements, actually having someone in the restaurant dedicated to managing that was essential. And we realized that our host and hostess at the restaurants were always the lowest paid, sort of shittiest job. You're a student or whatever, just come for 3 nights and do that. And so we have made the job of hostess and host like one of the best jobs. So we have massively, because we make so much more tips with Sunday, we have used a portion of that tips for the remuneration for paying the host. And now the hosts actually are the people in the restaurant who can make the most money. So now my best head waiters, the next evolution is becoming the host. When a year ago, it was a shitty job for a student.
That's a great point. We started to get into the model where the hostess gets a part of the tip to incentivize them to book those tables and get them booked up. We haven't gone as far as you, Victor, to make it the best job, but that's not a bad idea to think about. So, yeah. But
all right, we have a couple minutes left. I want to ask a last question to both of you before we open it up for questions. It's about brand experience and customer experience. Both of you have built pretty phenomenal concepts. And Brad, I loved your description of feeling like you're on vacation when you walk into one of your restaurants. It's certainly the case in the Big Mama ones. What are the behind the scenes processes, mechanisms, tips that you've put into place that guarantee such an excellent brand experience across the board? And you're in different states and different countries. How do you make sure you're still wowing your customers with the feel of your restaurants when they come in from an operational perspective in the background?
First, design is huge. I design all my own restaurants and work with my architects and do that. So I think just the walk-in experience, I think Big Mama does this great. Like, I think aesthetics is overlooked by a lot of restaurateurs. So investing time and money in those things. But our training process when we open a store is hugely important to us. There's a lot, frustratingly, sometimes there's a lot of money. I go to build a restaurant, I see how much millions of dollars we spend on just training, right? And we're talking 3 weeks in their kitchen, staff. I mean, to the point where it's pretty crazy, our training that happens. And I think if you set that off from the beginning, that just perpetuates throughout the rest of operating your venue, and it kind of naturally happens. We see that when we have great trainings, we have great stores. We see when our training goes bad, that we're picking up the pieces for a year and trying to get the thing back on track, and etc. And then setting, I think, to get a well operated store, you have to set realistic timelines for your operator, your management teams, to say, hey, okay, for the first 3 weeks, first 4 weeks, focus on the guests. By week 4, I want you to focus on labor, right? Or now we've even sped it up, because if you don't do that soon enough, they'll get into this like comfortability spot where they're like, this is how I need to operate. And you got to remind them, this is how I'm allowing you to operate for these 2 weeks. And these 2 weeks, you got to operate like this and this and this. And you got to scale that down. And when you hold those strict timelines, they get into a better routine, right? And so that's just what we do is great trainings lead to great restaurants, in our opinions.
I won't repeat what Brad said. I think these are two things, design and training, that we have huge focus on. We have internalized our design studio, which was a crazy decision at the time. And it's a stupid, crazy decision. We didn't have any big view when we did it. We did it sort of by chance, and it's one of the best decisions we've ever made. Today, it's a 20 people design studio just for us, so it became big. To add to what Brad said, I would say churn. Looking at my churn by category of employees, we have an obsession about churn. I want to be not the best against the other. I just want to be a better version of ourselves every month. Minimizing churn maximizes stability of performance, and it takes to be really dedicated to keep it low. And so sometimes it's about making sacrifices, etc. It's a lot of sorts about tips, as we've talked about, which is probably why I have a bias of trying to build Sunday as always better feature for tips and tips and tips and tips. On Toast restaurants, we generate in the US 1.9 out of an average of 19. We generate exactly 10% more tips when people pay with their phone than when people pay with either the handhelds or their credit cards. In France, we generate 4 times more tips. So all the tips is one of the part that has helped us out of the blue increase staff retention, just because money eventually, when you've done a lot of other stuff, just more money.
Money helps.
Money helps.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like GMs, reward your GMs, right? Compensate them well. They'll stick with you, and they'll create teams that stay, and that also helps.
Yes. Something I would like to be doing better is how can I have associate GMs, etc., be more equity incentivized. We realize that I think we're proud to have 150 people that are equity incentivized in the restaurant business, which is rare for a restaurant company. But as we grow, I think we have at least 300 or 400 people who would love to. And so this is something we're working on, to have the structure to do that. And so the other one is just pure rule of management. What you can't measure, you can't manage. And again, with Sunday, we build that. We build that to our need, but it's something that everyone uses in the company. If I show you an example, can I share my screen? I can share my screen. Beautiful. Up. So I was actually talking about this with my manager this morning. This is one of our restaurants. And so you see that in this restaurant, last week, over the 7 days, we had 1,800 comments of guests saying if they like it or not. And we have a corporate objective of 4.7. So this restaurant is not exactly at par. And when they're not happy, I know why they're not happy. I know where they sat, table 310. I know what they had if I click on view the order. And so this gives us a level of granularity to manage the restaurant, which has been transforming for us. And here, if I click on staff, I see the rating of each of my staff. I'm not sure, can you still see my screen? Yes. And so what I see here is that when I said the objective of the restaurant is 4.7, well, look at all these guys. All these guys are above 4.7. So it's possible. But then these guys are at 4.5 and 4.6. Why is that? And so I probably need to retrain these people. I need to onboard them better. There's something I need to do with these guys. And so that level of data has been transformative for us. And the biggest beauty of it is that I don't need personally, or Tigran, my co-founder, to be on their back. They get these reports at every shift. And so I know that if they get a 4.5, the waiters, they're going to be themselves self-managing to try and catch up. And my managers are going to be looking at it. So I don't have to check my figures every day. I can actually, to be honest, I check them on a monthly basis, because I know that within the month, if they are not at par, it is explicit, they know it, and they're working on it.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. All right, we've got 2 more minutes. There's a question from the audience on whether or not Sunday only processes payments on QR codes, or what happens on any payments outside of that flow. I can take this question quickly because I actually have another question for Brad and Victor that I want to ask. Dan would love to connect with you in more detail. We absolutely process payments outside of that flow when a restaurant uses our handheld payment terminals, which we're starting to deploy. So that's my commercial plug. Please come talk to us if you're interested in those. We'd love to mention them. Brad and Victor, we have a minute left. This was fantastic. Really interesting insights. I have a very quick question for each of you. Which is your next restaurant opening that you're most excited about, and why?
All right, two things. I'm going to answer that, but real quick, I caught on the questions over here, the use of slang. Kyle, also check out a company called Renmo, RENVMO or something like that. Those are the ones that competes against slang. I think they do a little bit better job than slang. So for the AI voice answer, I don't want that to go unanswered. But Dallas, Texas, we are opening a behemoth, 20,000 square foot location in downtown Dallas. So pretty excited about that one. And that will be opening in January. So that I'm pumped about it.
Exciting. Victor, what about you? Newest opening that you're excited about?
Well, Dubai in the coming in 8 months, it's such a different city. There is such a need and an ask for extravagant, extraordinary restaurant that we have a lot of budget and free hands to do something pretty crazy. And Paris, we actually just signed a restaurant in Paris. We have never spent so much in key money for a restaurant because it's a very beautiful restaurant. It's been a Michelin star restaurant for the last 20 years that we're now buying. And we're going to open a restaurant, an Italian restaurant that is more upscale. And that is a very exciting perspective. Our restaurants in Milan and in London are more upscale, but after 6 years of not opening in Paris, we're going to come back with something pretty higher end. So this is very exciting.
All right, Dallas, Dubai, Paris, I'm ready. All right, gentlemen, we're over. It was fantastic to get your insights. Brad, thank you so much for coming to talk to us. You're an incredible customer. We love working with your team. Congrats on the fabulous expansion of Hampton Social. And Victor, always a pleasure to have you on screen with me. Have a great day, all of you. Thank you for all our guests.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Brad.
Bye.
Thank you, Christine.
Take care.